These are all of the Cypher System books that I talked about in 2020. These are all of the Cypher System books that I talked about in 2023, which are a heck of a lot. So I decided to make a top 3 of absolute must-buys. Now, before I talk about my top 3 of Cypher System books, there's 2 books that I do not want to include in this list for 2 different reasons. The first one being the Cypher System Rulebook, because it is the Cypher System Rulebook. It is the book you get if you're somewhat serious about the Cypher System. It is just the baseline of the Cypher System, especially if you want to play more genres or get more ideas or game mastering tips and all of that stuff. This beast is an absolute must get. Now, you can get away with not buying this if you buy some of the other books I will talk about today, but in general, yeah, if you want to play anything else in 5th edition or whatever, get this. The next one is also a little bit of a shameless plug. Isle of the Dreaded Accursed. Now, this is the 5th edition version of Isle of the Dreaded Accursed, but there's also a Cypher System version of this. But the print-on-demand version of that is not yet ready. So you will soon be able to pick that up from DriveThruRPG. You can already pick up the PDF and the virtual tabletop version, which is absolutely insane when I look at that. But it is not ready yet, so it doesn't really kind of fit in this list today. Now, that said, if you're looking for a full multi-session fantasy horror adventure with all kinds of new stuff for the Cypher System, written by me and JVC Perry and converted to the Cypher System by CatUp, this one is really for you. Link will be in the description below, and you will be able to support me, to support CatUp, to support the person behind the virtual tabletop version if you pick this one up. So make sure you do. Now, whenever somebody says Cypher System, there's always one word that comes to mind for me and a lot of people, and that is Numenéra. This is Numenéra Discovery, one of the 2 books of the enormous Numenéra campaign setting. Numenéra, I don't know in what order exactly it happened, but Numenéra was created for the Cypher System, and or the Cypher System was created for Numenéra. Everything in the Cypher System feels Numenéra, and everything Numenéra feels Cypher System. They are bound together like, I don't know, bread and wine or whatever. Numenéra is an incredible, this is Discovery, I don't even own Destiny yet. This is a 400 pages book with a campaign setting, with everything you'd expect a campaign setting to have. I mean, the world building is there, the new powers, the new features, the new foci, the new classes, to just call it like tabletop RPG terms, classes, races, a bunch of new monsters, magic items, normal items, ways to play the game. Everything is in here. Numenéra Discovery is a 400 pages thick masterpiece that, if you are serious about the Cypher System, you must at least look at. Download one of the free adventures from Numenéra and just get a feeler of it. Now, I have a full review of it, and I think even a few more videos, but to keep this short, Numenéra is set a billion years in the future, but it is still fantasy. A little bit science fantasy, but it's still a fantasy. There is a 9 civilization who's starting from scratch, and generally speaking, they are a fantasy civilization like we know and love them. The only difference is that all the other 8 civilizations over the billions of years have left some things behind, ruins and items that people don't know what they are, and they are called ciphers. And those things have special powers, and they're basically in this setting called Numenéra. They have special powers, but they're not always used for the powers they were originally for. But the people, the 9 civilization finds them, can use them for like whatever reason, and they don't really know how they work or why they work or when they work, but they're still using them now and then. So if you're into science fantasy, that you can, the coolest thing about this is that it's science fantasy, but you as a game master have a lot of freedom of taking it way more to the fantasy side or taking it way more to the science side of the science fantasy, which is something that really, really appeals to me with Numenéra. I am not playing in the Numenéra setting right now, but I am using a lot of stuff from this book in my Cypher game that I'm running in the Midgard campaign setting. I have no words for this. This should get an Oscar if that exists for this type. This is so incredibly good. Old Gods of Appalachia is, look at this. It is a, I don't know how many pages, almost 400 pages thick book that uses a Cypher system, and it's an RPG based on the horror podcast on, I've been listening to it the last couple of weeks via Spotify, horror podcast, which is like horror stories that play in and around the Appalachia region. It's an incredible podcast that you should listen to. I'm not into horror myself, like at all, and I just started listening to it because I got my hands on this book. So for me, it's the other way around, right? And I got my hands on this book and I was like, Appalachia podcast, right? So I started listening to the podcast and I cannot stop listening to the podcast. It's really, really good. That said, this book, it is so cool because Appalachia is a real region on Earth. The Earth we are in right now, it's in the United States. And I think part in Canada, it's a mountainous region which has a lot of history with, like, I don't know, slavery and witch huntings and all of that stuff, and all of those like folklore stories and bad history and dark history. They poured that all into like a fantasy like gritty horror type RPG, and the Appalachia podcast as well. It all feels really realistic and as if it could happen on Earth, but it's also all fantasy, and it is, I don't know, I really don't know where to start when I yeah, it's just, man, this is so ridiculously good. Link is in the description below. For my last pick, I was really on the fence about these two. Now, if you don't know what these are white books by Monte Games, which are genre books for the Cypher system, which go deeper into playing a certain genre for the Cypher system. This one is for superheroes, and this one is for Godforsaken. It's for fantasy, playing fantasy, so playing D&D-like games with the Cypher system. Now, I got more personal use out of this one. Because I play fantasy with my group in the Midgard campaign setting using the Cypher system, I got a lot of use out of Godforsaken. But there's two reasons why I think Claim the Sky takes it. Claim the Sky, first of all, comes with a really good system to play superheroes. Simple, because it's a Cypher system, but it goes deeper into a genre that doesn't have a lot of support in the tabletop RPG landscape, and it just gives you tips and tricks and everything on a genre that I am not used to playing, and it really grabbed my hand and guided me through to how to play superheroes with the Cypher system, which is something that I absolutely respect. Another reason is the index in this book really sucks. Like, seriously, you cannot find anything using this index. Other than that, it's a great book, but the index really sucks. So yeah, technically I got more use out of Godforsaken, but I have to judge these books by their absolute quality, and Claim the Sky just takes it a step further for me personally, because I have always been a fantasy player. I mean, I dabbled a little bit with sci-fi and some Star Wars over the years and some other stuff, even some horror here and there, but most of the time, 95% of what I do is fantasy, and I've always been scared as a game master to run anything else than fantasy. As a game master, I'm really, really good at running fantasy, but I am really scared to run anything else. And Claim the Sky is one of those books that when I started reading it, I really felt that I could just get a group of superheroes together and start playing a superhero campaign. Like, not actual superheroes on my table, I mean And that's my top 3 of Cypher System books that I talked about in 2023. Now, I'm planning much more Cypher System content in 2024, so if you are a Cypher System fan, or you're on the fence about playing or running the Cypher System, this channel is really for you. Another channel that I can really guide you to is Catup's channel, which is a buddy of mine. He's the best Canadian in the world. He's just insanely cool, and he knows much more about the Cypher System, so make sure to subscribe there. And until next video, bye-bye.